Hello, everyone. I'm Beta Speak, and we just launched a Beta School, and I'm happy to see you here at our Beta School. Thank you for subscribing and being our supporter. And we had this idea of before and after series, so we can talk with experts and people from all over the world, and to discuss what is happening now in their lives and businesses nowadays, and how the transition from before COVID-19 to after COVID-19 is happening, and what are the plans, and what are their thoughts right now. Right now I have in our virtual studio, I have Wendy Glavin.
Glavin, it's okay. We say Gal.
So hi, Wendy.
You got it close.
Wendy is a communications veteran, and she has her own agency. And hi, Wendy, I would like to ask you to tell us more. What is your expertise? And we are happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on Badass Summit. I love the title. I love the idea of before and after. I think that's like, I think lets us perhaps think about some things that we took for granted, and, think about what's really important to us. I think it's a really great topic. So I am a 30-year marketing communications veteran. And now I have an agency, my own agency in New York City called Wendy Glavin Agency. And I do marketing, executive writing, public relations, and social media advisory. So not really during this time, but at some point prior to COVID-19, I was sort of like reflecting on my career. And I realized that technology's been the thread throughout my entire 30-year career. So I started working in-house at GE, then I worked for, different size agencies, small to medium size, large agencies. And looking back, they kept giving me, after General Electric, they kept giving me tech accounts. So I had a division of DuPont. At Burson Marsteller, which is now Burson Cohen Wolf, I had a division of IBM. But somehow I never put these things together. Like, Wendy, you are a tech person. So I think that as time's gone on, I've sort of owned that fact. I mean, just because I'm not a technologist or a data scientist or, all those different things, that I believe that, and I have, learned about all the different, well, quote unquote, emerging technologies over these past several years, like artificial intelligence, financial technology, financial services, blockchain, crypto, data privacy, just learned a lot. And what I'd like to say to people is, people will say, well, how'd you learn blockchain? How'd you learn cryptocurrency? I mean, there's not a secret. It takes just reading and doing research. I mean, and then following people who, know more about whatever we know, and seeing their thoughts and watching videos. And it's really like very simple. Like, it's not a secret. It's just, so I would, a suggestion I have is people look back throughout their careers, they'll find common patterns, transferable skills. Another thing I realized was I've been writing for like my entire life, but somehow I never owned the fact that I'm a writer. I was asked to do event coverage about 7 years ago. So after doing event coverage, I have a business advisor, which I also would recommend to anyone, be it, a mentor, a colleague, a family member, whoever you, feel can, sort of help you to bring out your best side. She said to me, Wendy, you've been writing forever. Like, why don't we think about you actually writing jobs? But I didn't really think about that. So I started writing for Equities. I have a column called, they named the column after me, Glavin's Tech Talk, which I'm very proud of. So I write monthly on the different landscape articles about technology and how they are affecting whatever period we're in. I also I'm now using that Glavin's Tech Talk. I formed a new LinkedIn group called Tech Talk from Newbies to Savvy. And I'm doing a webinar on April 21st called Tech Talk, How to Become More Marketable. And I have 3 really fantastic speakers alongside of me. Maybe one of them, you know, Jason Yanowitz. He's, you know, part of a co-founder of Blockworks Group. So, you know, just trying to bring people together and talk about, you know, how we can think differently, work differently, help one another, that sort of thing.
Nice. I can see so many people are already adapting to what are we having now, because human race is very adaptable to whatever happens in the world. And now, obviously, everyone shifted online massively, even though we were all already online. Now everything is online. And yeah, this shift is so fast, and now if we don't react fast enough, we might be behind, probably. Yeah, but I think still, I was thinking recently about this, that human beings need personal connection.
Yes.
Anyway, it doesn't matter if we all shift online, but we can't exist without personal connection. I think that we still need to have offline events and different kind of activities and socialize and go for trips and etc. I hope that will go back, but I don't think that everything will be back at where we started before.
No, I mean, I want to tell you something else that I realized this weekend. So I have 3 grown boys. They're 28, 26, and 21. So 2 of them are in the other room, 26-year-old and the 21-year-old. 26 is working from home. He works for Marvel. And my 21-year-old is finishing up his junior year online. And perhaps because they're boys, or, you know, I don't know why, but they don't really share too much about their feelings of being scared or whatever. So I was reading an interesting article in the New York Times about, you know, how this is affecting like young adults, teenagers, etc. And it was such a wonderful article. And I went out into the living room and said to them on Saturday morning, you know, I just want to tell you, I am so sorry. I've been so busy focused on how all this affecting me. I didn't think about the fact that like your school year is canceled, you know, whatever different, like he was in a fraternity, so whatever different things they would have, like spring flings or, you know, those kinds of things, you know, canceled. And I said, you know, I just want to tell you that I'm sorry, and, you know, we're all going to make it through together. And, you know, it's just, so for young people, like when I actually read this New York Times article and I thought, yeah, I mean, it has a huge effect on them. I mean, you know, if you're on college campuses, right, you're, you know, talking to people, you're going to events, and, you know, now this just taking online classes, I think that's really hard. And especially in New York City where I live, you know, the epicenter of this, you know, most of us are trying to mainly stay home. I'm not saying, and if we go out, we wear a mask. I was very fortunate that my former client, who's from China, just out of the blue, she sent me 50 masks. Just as a gift, which was incredibly nice. So yeah, I think so I want to feel compassion and empathy for, you know, the people in all different situations. So it's not just about me, it's about my family. And then, you know, different friends and colleagues are dealing with, you know, all different sorts of emotions. I mean, beyond just COVID, you know, other people are sick or, you know, have other illnesses. And, you know, it's just, I think it's one, I mean, it sounds a bit cliche, but I do think we need to be grateful. And, you know, everyone's complained about technology last year, you know, with all the scandals and Cambridge Analytica and election interference, et cetera. But now we realize how technology and how important it is. Like if we didn't have all these tools, then we wouldn't be able to do what you said. And I think so much to be able to, talk to people, whether they're our friends or new friends like us. It's really important. And maybe when after COVID, we'll think more in terms of what things we took for granted, like just going outside for a walk, or, going to the supermarket, or, just going out to dinner, meeting with friends, going to movie theaters, like all these things. I think, I'm not saying just naturally, that's just, we took for granted. So now we're sort of seeing that, the result of that. And, so I'm just, what I'm trying to do is, as you say, like, think differently, work differently, come up with new ideas. Because as you said, life is probably, well, as they say, or as is reported, life is not going back to normal. And, it's been coined the new normal. So, the people who can be like creative and imaginative and come up with, as people say, pivot, or come up with side gigs, or, different things within their career history or their backgrounds or their interests or hobbies, we can find different ways to work.
Yeah, right. I'd like to know, Wendy, how are you coping with this as an entrepreneur, and what is the transition, and what do you think is going to change in your work after the quarantine?
So right now, I don't believe in selling. First of all, I never believe in selling because of my background's, I'm trained in public relations, which is like, no, don't sell, no advertising, all that kind of thing. So, I'm not trying to, get clients, all I'm trying to do is, keep in touch with people and help, have my colleagues and I help one another. In terms of how it's going to change, to be honest with you, which a lot of people are saying, it's likely in a year from now, I'm going to move out of New York City, because it's just too, not just because of COVID. It's just, I've lived in New York City for more than 30 years, and it's sort of, for a number of reasons, which I'm not going to go into, our falling infrastructure and plenty of other things, I'll probably do that. I'm happy that, I'm thrilled that I'm, a tech columnist and a published writer, so I can always write. I've worked with many, many startups, which I really enjoy. Blockchain startups, helping them with, streamlining their content on websites, white papers, decks, all that kind of thing. So, as I said, I really didn't connect to me, but having that writing skill is, obviously you can do that from anywhere. I'll tell you a funny thing. My middle son said to me, people sometimes say you should write a book. So I'm like, yeah, but I don't know I'm not sure what I'd write about. So one of my sons says, why don't you write from homemaker to blockchain? I'm like, what do you mean from homemaker to blockchain? I've been working. He's like, no, but it's like, what did he say? It's, what's it called when the headline is, it's clickbait. Like, of course, people
okay.
that, like from homemaker to blockchain, but if that's hardly the case. That was
Yeah. I'm also a journalist and a copywriter. And well, I've been writing a lot in Russian language. And then I started to write in English, which is, I'm a perfectionist. So I still think that I need to learn more there. So yeah, and I've been thinking about online writing. You can write from whenever you want. You can build your own schedule. There are so many publications and agencies you can work for. And yeah, I'm trying to go there as well. And it's my profession. I've been studying that for 5 years and been writing for years as well. And yeah, I've been thinking that jump into an online entrepreneur life doesn't have to stop me to write.
No,
So.
The only thing is, being an entrepreneur, it's, has ebbs and flows. There's pros and cons to everything. So if you work, within a company, obviously you have a set paycheck and, certain things are health insurance, etc. An entrepreneur, there's, waves of, you do really well, you're working with clients, it's exciting. And then other times, especially with startups, they don't have much money. I always speak to people individually, establish a relationship, and then figure out what works for both of us. Obviously, a startup doesn't have, like, for example, typical agency gets $10,000 a month. Well, startups are not going to pay $10,000 a month, nor should they. So I found in my agency to charge the value of the service. I've worked for other agencies that double and triple bill people out, and I just don't believe in that. So as I said, I charge the value of the service, and to write a press release, it's not, $500.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, if we think about it, if we think about it like this, it's like if someone gets fired. My ex-husband got fired actually right after we got married. He was working at Goldman Sachs, he got fired. And, sometimes those types of things, we were living in Philadelphia, help to totally move you in a more positive and new direction, which it did for him. He does collateral loan obligation, CLO bonds, and he's doing really well. And he said to me recently, fortunately, I got out of the mortgage banking industry years ago. So I think it's more build on our strengths, like look back, but like, obviously your strengths are like as a broadcaster, right? And video drives engagement more than anything else. So one thing which you'll laugh about is, I'm used to doing these things, but I have not created my own LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live with me talking. So I think it was last weekend, a couple weekends ago, I put this cap on, and I just figured, okay, you know what? I just said, hey, welcome to Glavin's frat house. And so, it like pushes you out of your comfort zone. I mean, because I'm an advocate for my clients, you're sort of trained, like, don't sell, don't promote yourself, that kind of thing. So that was sort of a big leap. Whereas I'll go to events and speak and that kind of thing, but it's different to like shoot a video of yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have that down. That's not going away ever.
I wonder why is your advice not to sell yourself, not to promote, why is that so?
I would say there's like a classic phrase that goes, instead of selling, start helping. So what I don't like, and what's been happening to me a lot, is I'd say on a daily basis I get LinkedIn notifications of people trying to sell something. So number one, during this period, I think it's not appropriate. I mean, people are, we have huge job losses, people are sick, people know people are sick, people have died. I mean, it's not the time to be selling. But so as I said before, like, I'm more of an advocate. So advocate for my clients. So selling myself it's not really how I've been trained. In other words, I'm happy to talk about ideas, as you can hear me, but it's different to put myself out there. I think that the way I've been trained is that, people don't want to be sold to. It's all about building relationships and collaborating, and, let's say as an agency, being an extension of clients, like being the client's conscience, like saying, okay, this is going to work, this isn't going to work, that kind of thing. I just think it's not my job to sell.
I like the approach, and all the time, everything that I've built for the past 2 years, 1.5, I was always thinking about customer. I was always thinking, what does the person need to get from this? What is the value of my product here, and how will it change the situation? How will it solve the problem for the client, for the customer? And it's not an easy thing to sell, actually. And with all this massively growing advertising in the internet, already everything already almost each of us know, especially digital entrepreneurs, how does it work, how all the funnels work, how all it goes and grows in the social media, then email marketing, and etc, etc. Yeah, so it's not, it's time when, I know maybe not now, still it's working, but soon it's gonna be time when it will stop working.
Well, I think that, you know, why I actually got some requests today having to do with advertising. I said, you know, and I declined it, and I said, you know, I don't have relevant experience, but I don't really believe in it. So here's what I think. If you're at a huge company, okay, like let's say, I forgot what the ads I keep seeing for, you know, some sort of toilet paper, you know what I mean? So there's times when like advertising is important, but I think that, you know, at least with my agency, which I deal with more either startups, small to medium-sized businesses, some global firms, but advertising is just not appropriate, because what's the most important thing is getting third-party credibility from editors and journalists. So it's almost like me saying to you, you know, my 3 boys are great. It's like, well, of course you would say that. You're the mother. And I've said to many clients, you know, get rid of the accolades that you're saying about yourself and your company. Like, we're the most revolutionary. We're the first AI software, you know, solution that blah, blah, blah. So I counsel clients a lot about that. Like, you're not the first solution that's ever existed. You know what I mean? Or they'll compare themselves to like Apple or LinkedIn. It's like, no, I'm sorry, you're not Apple or LinkedIn. So what you said is true. It's like, what is your value to the customer? You know, what problem or need are you solving? And there's you know, Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
Yeah, of course.
So his book called Jab, 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 Right Hook, which is a wrestling analogy, which I didn't know. I had to find that out. But, you know, what that means is like, give, give, give. And then at some point you can do the ask. But first you have to do all the giving before you ask. So I think that's how I feel about it. And, you know, for me, one of the biggest ways I've gotten clients is at events, is attending events, also through word of mouth. So I think one advantage I have is that I'm also in a niche, which is, you know, I'm 61 years old, and, you know, there's not a ton of women in tech, like at my age, who has like I sort of know a little about a lot of things. So I think, you know, that's a good niche that I'm in. And I don't know, you know, I don't know what, I guess I just think about it more day to day, as opposed to like, what am I going to do? Because we don't know when this is going to end. You know what I mean? We don't know. So instead of me thinking about that, well, when's it going to end, or what's Governor Cuomo going to say today? You know, I'd rather just, you know, when I say take a day to day, I don't mean you know, drag through the day. It's like, there's a really great quote that says, instead of thinking about 6 months from now or a year from now, think about what you can do in the next 24 hours to get to where you want to be. So I think that's more my mindset. Maybe not that short, but, you know, essentially like, what can I do today that's going to help me tomorrow? And some of those days, I'm sure for all of us, some days we just need rest, or we just need to turn off the TV, or, you know, sometimes at night it's sort of enough. So maybe like 7, I turn off all my devices, 7 p.m. I just watch TV, which, you know, plenty of people do. So I think hopefully this will help create more of a work-life balance. I mean,
yeah. I think that I saw also many stories in social media when, okay, there are more people that actually have this time to take their moment to stop and not to be super crazy productive. So I see two types of people online now that are like shouting out there, it's time to catch this chance and be super productive and build something new, and there are so many new opportunities. And other people, yeah, they say, no, I just can't do anything, I just want to stop, I want to sleep, I want, you know, people, we are working too hard now, everybody, because our brain has to adapt to so much information.
Yes, I completely agree with you.
And during the last 3 years, I think it was like massive internet growth, massive online business growth. And me and my friend, we were thinking of like what made us happy when we were younger, when we were kids. Like it was simple things. It was something for the soul, something for the body. It was nature. It was friends, family, and it was never like. And then after that, maybe some achievements at school or at work or in the career. It was after. Everything that makes us happy is with people that we love, that we like, that we're surrounded with, our family members, our friends. And so that is gone now. And I think that it is time to take it back and stop hustling like crazy. Because look at even mental health issues nowadays in startups, in big companies where employees just exhausted all the time, because it's so much information all the time, so much work, and it never stops.
Yeah, I completely agree. In this webinar I'm doing on the 21st, one of the questions, I mean, I write it. And then, so one of the questions I'm going to speak to are what are the hard and soft skills, you know, most needed. So, you know, the soft skills, which people say, you know, can they be taught, which I think you model that as a parent. That doesn't mean your children are going to have emotional intelligence, but they, you know, study after study says the most important things are emotional intelligence, creativity, flexibility, adaptability. And so I think that if we can, and I read a Harvard Business Review article today, and it talked about imagination, like how can we use our imagination? What you're talking about, take time to reflect, like stop, you know, working so hard. I've said that to friends too. Like, you know, I joke, right? And I say, I don't want to call anybody out, but I'm like, listen, you're not like, you know, on the front lines at a hospital. Okay. Like what we're doing, it's not so critical. You know what I mean? You're not like an essential worker. So, you know, it's like, I don't take myself too seriously. And I think what you said is really important. Like take the time to just rest and like absorb all of this. And, you know, some days are people, at least I find some people, some days people are really depressed, scared, stressed, you know, other days, maybe something happens, people feel, you know, a little bit better, but it's, you know, it just kind of goes like this. That's why I don't want to focus other than, yes, I'll probably move out of the city to get what you said, the nature and trees and, you know, being in that environment, because I do love that. And I think you make a good point about what we did as children. It's exactly what you said. Outside, you know, bicycling, ice skating, you know, all these kinds of things, which, you know, we can't really do, which I think also what's a problem is, you know, for people that have, I don't want to say mental health concerns or concerns about their mental health, you know, what is always recommended is things like exercise and going outside and, you know, talking to people and being with people and that sort of thing. But we're, you know, as they say, you know, we're apart, you know, we're, what's that phrase, the hashtag, it's like we're something like alone apart or whatever it is, whatever the latest hashtag is. But it's hard that we don't, it's really tough if you're like an extrovert and enjoy being around people, it's hard to not be able to have that. So, but I think dwelling on this, which is also what I've said, like, it's not going to change anytime soon. So of course we all have the right to have bad days. I mean, of course everybody, should have bad days, but I try to help friends and say, listen, I mean, it's not going away. So, being glued to CNN or whatever station that might be and watching every single thing, I don't think it's, at least for me, I don't think it's healthy. Not, I want to be informed, but not like every single day listening to every stat.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen when this all quarantine is over? And do you think your work will really change, or maybe some parts of it will change? What is the future, do you think? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I've always loved going to events, either participating, by talking and raising my hand or speaking at events. I do miss that a lot, just because being around people and hearing diverse ideas. And, a good example was South by Southwest in 2019. What was really jarring to me is that in New York City, when you meet people, it's like, hi, I'm Wendy Glavin. Like, what's your name? Da, da, da. What do you do? What do you do? Like, it's just all very like formal. And at South by Southwest, everybody was their first name. Nobody cared what you did for a living. It was just an exchange of ideas, and it didn't matter your age or what you said, or, that was just such an incredible experience. And I'll tell you what was funny. I spent a lot of time with Stuart Rogers there, and Adrian Ashley. And what was interesting is when I was there, it was just, and I've traveled, I mean, over my life, I've traveled throughout the world. But when I went to Austin, I get on the plane in the morning, and there was something wrong with my phone. And I just said to the guy next to me, like, my phone's like, what's it called? Going like black and white and shaking, can you? And then he said, yes. And it turned out he was going to South by Southwest. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 a.m. So he said, oh, you going to South by? Yes, I'm going to South by Southwest. And then they come around to say, what would you like to drink? So I said to him, what, do you want a coffee? Or he's like, no, like, why not have a vodka tonic? I'm like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. So he's like, so the whole thing, South by Southwest is also kind of like a party, with like Tito's and tacos. And then I get back on the plane, and it's so relaxing and fun. And all of a sudden I get back on the plane, and I was, they said that they were serving and get up if you have to use the restroom. I get up, and then they're yelling at me on the plane, like, go sit down. Like, we told you, I'm like, I know you told me that it was okay to get up, and then arguing. And then I get out and take a taxi from JFK. And then we get into the city, and there's like a biker, and they start screaming out the window, like all these curse words, like, what the, is your problem? Not your problem. It's like back, like aggression and anger and all that kind of thing. I think something that what I think this whole situation is teaching me, and is, I think, important for everyone, is that, people don't hire other people because of like what they do for a living. Meaning, like, there's tons of agency people, there's tons of marketing people, there's tons of PR people, writers, da 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 da. People hire us for who we are. And Carla Ann Harris, the managing director of Morgan Stanley, said, each one of us has our own backgrounds, experiences, relationships, hobbies, interests, and therefore we have no competition. So that's our competitive advantage. And she says, if you bring your authentic self to the table, people will trust you, and trust is at the heart of any successful relationship. So I really believe in that. She has done, great TED Talks and other videos. And, I agree with that. People hire us for us. So that's why I think the quote unquote selling of products and services, it always starts with relationship building.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I'm listening to you, and it's just confirmation of what I think. So I'm happier and happier.
I'm so happy to hear. See, now that's a perfect example. Like if I speak to somebody or they speak to me and we make each other happy, then I'm already happier. You know, my dad died young. He was a lawyer. He died at 68. And as a little girl, I said to him, Dad, what does love mean? He goes, love means when it's more important for you to do for the other person to make them happy. Because then in the end, if you're making another person happy, that makes yourself happy. And I feel all the time, whenever I'm, helping anybody, meaning a friend, my kids, whatever, and I make them feel better, then that makes me feel good.
Yeah, well, that's the purpose of any project I do now.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think that's another thing when you say about the future, like I will not, and not like I'm sitting on a big pile of money or anything, but like I will not work for people. If I work with people, if I have a gut inside of like, you know what, they're going to be combative. I don't feel this kind of quote unquote chemistry. I'm not saying I have people lined up, but I'm just saying I want work to be fun. And certain clients that I've had have been incredibly fun and have become friends. And that's the way we're not supposed to work to live, right? So, we need to be enjoying what we're doing, which goes back to what you're saying. It's the people that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I always feel like life has to be comfortable. We will always have problems to deal with, some stuff in our life that it's not great, but if we can do our life more comfortable for us and for other people, and if we could use all this information we have this floating on us from online, and now we know what is like to be healthy, what is like to be mentally sane, what is like to be a good businessman or an employee or remote worker. We have all that. I mean, it depends. There is different information out there, but I mean, now we know so much. It's time to use it. It's time to use and to make ourselves feel comfortable, more healthy, more happier, healthier. Us and our families and people around us. And there is no time for this competition and games and jealousy and it's time already to get that and to understand that humanity is about human beings and about relationship to each other. Same exactly what you said just now. And I think this is a big sign now, and we just have to change. We just have to change, and we have to open our hearts. We have to open our minds, and just be people, no matter what, and no matter how much money we have, and how big is the business, or if we are someone who is a simple worker or someone who is a businessman. It doesn't matter anymore. We are all the same, and we need to help each other and collaborate and be those humans. That's it.
Yeah, I want to follow up with what you just said and quote my father again, who really was my hero and is my hero. But also he was a partner at a law firm. And he told me that, if the clerk at City Hall doesn't file my case, because he was a prosecutor, then my case is not heard. So therefore the clerk at City Hall that files the case is just as important as me. So therefore we're all the same. Like we all have something to offer. Everything that we all do is important. So I've always thought that way. I've never viewed people as like lesser or more, or because they're, men, or because they're women, or, whatever it might be. It's like, just, if people come from a good place, have a good heart, have, things to share, and want to be helpful and caring and that kind of thing. I mean, that's the most important thing. And also, you know, all those buzzwords about like, we need to be more authentic. We need to be more this, we need to be more that. Well, now, you know, now's the time to like be vulnerable, like to say, you know, I've had bad days, you know, like some days I've wanted to lay in bed, you know, other days, like there are better days. But it's okay. Like we need to just, that's really what authenticity is being vulnerable. And of course, nobody wants to be vulnerable. We all want to like control, but I think that opens the door to so much better things.
Yeah, because
Hiding like things that their fears or their worries, and you know, it will then, what's it called? It's there's a book, it's called You Are the Placebo, and it talks about the voices in your head, that we all have voices in our head that's like, you know, should I wear this color dress? Should I do this? Should I like, you know, should I go outside today or should I not? Like all these constant voices in our head, and it's important to sort of realize where they're coming from, what they trigger, and that's why it's important to sort of focus on not these things from our past, but focus on like where we are now.
yeah, and that is what causes fear of missing out. Exactly. It's in social media when everybody was writing and showing off all the best they have. I'm so great. I'm so successful. And look at my pictures. I travel the world or whatever else is, you know, showing off. And then at some point I was like, people, that's not real. You have problems also. You struggle as well. And it was like, there's too much fake in social media. That's why when we were creating Beta Summit, I said to Stuart, like, look, I will interview top experts from all over the world, and they will tell, they will speak on the necessary information, and they will show off, they will show best of them, obviously. But what I want to do, I want to ask them, what did they, where did they come from, and how did they go through all their paths from zero to hero? How did they learn, and what were they struggling with on their way to success? How did they achieve that? Because that storyline is one of the main of any interview, and that vulnerability that you're talking about, that is what makes us humans. And I want to show young people that it's not only about success, it's how you achieve it, and you will fail, and failing is okay. You fail, you get up, you fail, you get up. And this is how these people did this, and how you also can do this. You can achieve your dreams, your goals, you can do this. And it's not like, it's not a one jump and tomorrow you are a star, a YouTube star or whatever, you know, right away. There is one night success, but mostly people have to make a big effort and go for it, and go through struggles and different ways in their lives. And that's why we decided to make those interviews vulnerable and honest, and yes, with necessary information on the subject, but they are like, let's say you're talking to a friend and you ask, can you please explain me how to create my own brand? And you're on the couch and drinking tea, you know? So
a glass of wine or something.
yeah. Yeah.
If you want, I can tell you a little bit more of what you said, the vulnerable path that you didn't hear about. So after I wanted to be an actress or a lawyer, my professor said I was too dramatic after 2 years. I was just like, okay, then maybe I should major in communications because maybe they need dramatic people. It was like the extent of it. I already told you about my father telling me I couldn't be, I actually got into a law school, but not a very good one. And he said, forget it, because, you know, you have to be able to see the other side to win your case. So then, you know, I told you but I was not allowed to live at home. So it's like, you graduate college, you get a job, bye-bye. So, you know, I worked at GE. No, yes, I worked at GE. I don't want to talk about the job stuff. I want to talk about the tough stuff. So when I grew up, I went to school in Center City, Philadelphia. I actually went to school with Kevin Bacon. We played spin the bottle as young kids, and then we were in the closet, and he said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to kiss you," which was pretty funny because it's so many years later. But, you know, I walked the streets of Center City, Philadelphia to go to this school. I took a bus as like a young girl. Then after we moved out to the suburbs of Philadelphia, I was surrounded by a lot of wealthy people, and at the time we were not. And, you know, it was like, that was kind of a hard transition. Then I had my boyfriend, my first boyfriend, who I loved so much. He went to Harvard, I went to Penn State, and I guess those two didn't really quite mesh. You know, throughout the years, like I would say the most important thing for me has been resiliency, with what you said about like, take steps back, you know, fall down, but get back up. So this is, I don't think I've shared this with anybody publicly, but I was disowned by my mother after my father died. And later I was sued by my siblings. So I don't have, I mean, those are people, as I say, that I used to know, but that was quite difficult. So what I say now is my family or my children, to a certain degree, my ex-husband, because we are friends. I've known him for 30 some years, and they're friends that I choose. So that took me a long time to get over. But, you know, I've come to learn that, so that's their loss, not their even loss about me, but the loss for my children, like their aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews. I mean, they don't have anything like that. So I think it's helped to make our family stronger and closer. So I think it has to do with, you know, dealing with different crises that we go through, whatever that might be, with our families, with people that we know, with illnesses, whatever that might be, and just, you know, dealing with it, but trying to get beyond it. Because we all have that, is what you just said. I mean, sometimes I dream about writing a book called Disowned. You know, I'm not upset about that anymore. And actually, I'd like to use those situations to help other people who've actually had similar circumstance. When you share some of these kinds of things, you know, one of my closest friends had a very similar situation with her family. So, you know, she feels alone sometimes, and certainly during holiday time that affects people. So I think it's good to share our personal stories, because people say, you know, I'll say, oh, I was in a taxi and Mack truck crash after I had 2 knee replacements. So I suffered with I had a full leg brace on for a year. That's right after I started my agency. I had to work from my bed. And then I ended up having to have an MCL replacement on my knee replacement in 2018. When I was at South by Southwest, I want to thank Stuart, because I had a cane and he kept carrying my computer and my bag and all that kind of stuff. Just so incredibly helpful and kind. But, you know, what are our choices? Like, our choices are either to like keep going or do what? Like lay in bed or get depressed, and which is okay too. It's okay too, but then, you know, get help. You know, I say to people, if you're really stressed out about COVID-19 and you can't sort of function, then please, like I admire you if you get help. I think that's really important. I mean, people who have trouble dealing with this, and then also what happens is sometimes people feel like, then meaning since a public health crisis is around us, it's like, well, like I have a cough, maybe like I'm sick, maybe I'm, you know, so people they're just being really, especially here in New York City, I'm sure everywhere, you know, people are just really scared. So I would always suggest that people get help during these difficult, traumatic times if they feel they need that.
Yeah. Okay. Again, I would love to talk to you forever. I think
All day long.
I'm sure we would find so many topics to discuss.
We're gonna have to come visit you someday. That's
Yeah, come visit.
what I
Yeah.
want to do. I want to travel like I used to because I really miss that. And one,
Yeah, I miss traveling a lot.
there's an article I wrote a while back called I didn't sometimes the managing editor of Equities, he renames, he writes a new headline, so it's called "So You Want to Be a Successful Writer." So since you're been thinking a lot about that, if you go on my website under news, you'll see that article, and maybe it'll sort of spark some ideas or confirm more about what you're thinking of doing.
Yeah, I just write it down.
Yeah, that's his headline. So you want to be a successful writer.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And it was really a pleasure.
Absolutely. On this dreary, rainy, windy day, like this was like a big bright spot. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here with us and for telling your story and being vulnerable and participating in our project.
Sure.
And I hope you guys will be really inspired by Wendy.
Thank you.
And I will add some links under the video when I post it, so you can check more of Wendy's work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us,
Stay in
and I
touch.
hope to see you soon.
Me too.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.